Being in debt is no joke, people. And what's even scarier is that a lot of people don't realize just how much in debt they are. According to The Guardian in 2017, on average, UK citizens are £8,000 in debt. And this ain't even including mortgages. While some people focus on their debts, others might actually focus on investing even though they are thousands of pounds in debt. And so if paying off your debts was like running up a hill, very steep hill, then investing while being in debt kinda is like running up that same hill, but in the winter while it's raining and windy, and oh yeah, the ground's really icy as well. If you have taken a student loan, a normal loan, borrowed some money, bought your car on finance, bought a house with a mortgage, chances are you're gonna need to watch this video. Boy, have I got some juicy information for you people. And I'm ready to dish it out.
You know what you're watching. DS Learning Finance. Whoa.
Before I get started on which one's actually the best route to take, I think it's important, people, to let you know that before you can even make this educated decision, you literally need to see how much in debt you are. And I know for a lot of people, it can be such a drag, like going to the doctors, like going to the dentist, because you know you're going to spend money and you know you're just going to be hit with some crushing reality. But in order for you to plan your journey ahead, you need to actually see the load that you're carrying while you're going on that journey. So you need to know where you stand, basically. It's also important to know that I am strictly, exclusively, explicitly, whatever sort of word you want to use, talking about bad debt versus investing. I'm not talking about good debt versus investing, because to me, good debt is actually a form of doing both at the same time. I actually did a video last week, and this video is actually a continuation from that one, about good debt versus bad debt. So if you guys haven't watched that, or you want to find out what the difference is, then just click right here. See how easy I've made it for you. It's for this reason that I don't consider the mortgage that I have with my brothers with this property as bad debt. And it's because I'm not the one paying off that debt, my tenants are. And the difference that I make on top is mine as a profit. Me and my brothers who bought the property as a profit. So technically it's a form of good debt because it's investing my money and it's actually making more money. But, oh Lord, my student finance, my student loan fees, now that, I call that bad debt, in my opinion. Even though I'm technically putting my degree to good use by the work that I'm doing currently right now, and without my uni degree I wouldn't have actually been able to get this job, I still consider it a form of bad debt just because of how long it takes to pay off this debt. And this is actually one of the parameters that I use to determine whether I want to pay off my debt or start investing my money, even though being in debt. And it's time. How long will it take me to pay off my debts? How long can I see my investments continuing to make me money consistently? Those two questions will help me get a sense of which one to prioritize, paying off my debts or investing my money even though being in debt. For me personally, my brother, who got student finance like I did, but had to actually pay a third of what I paid, it took him 8+ years to eventually pay off his student finance. He's just getting out now. Just by doing simple maths, you can see that it's going to take me 20+ years to pay off my student finance fees without any additional input. And so, can I see my investments making me money consistently for 20+ years? That's a good and valid question to ask. But this isn't all that there is to consider. The other piece to the puzzle is interest rates. How much interest are you paying? Because that then will dictate how much your investments must grow by before you can start to see a profit. For me personally, I pay 4.5% interest in line with inflation on top of the student finance that I actually owe. This means that before I can even start to see some profits, my investments need to at least make 4.5% interest. So they must grow by that amount just to keep up with my debts. And so this is a valid point for why I personally invest my money, because one of my stocks gives me an 8% dividend. So just putting my money in that stock, I'm already almost doubling the debt that I'm having to pay in terms of interest rate. And the funny thing is, when you look at these two factors, time and interest, they're actually the big factors that affect compound interest in, which is all that paying off your debt and investing your money is all about compounding. It's actually better if I show you guys using a graph. So what I'm going to plot right now is money versus time. Gosh. This ain't even straight, people. I apologize. So this is money and time. This positive region is basically your profit zone. And this negative region is basically your loss zone. And so what you're doing with having debts and basically just letting them compound in is you're doing this. That's what you're doing. It's not a good curve to have, trust me. So the more debt you take on, you can imagine this curve getting lower and lower. So that might have started at £100, for example, but if you took on a debt £1,000, you're effectively going to get a similar curve, but it's going to already start lower, start much lower. So you've got that £1,000 to initially pay off. This is why you need to really make sure you understand what amount of debt you have, because it then dictates how much your investments need to make in order to counteract this. Say we invested properly, well, the way to get out would be doing this exact curve, but in the opposite direction. So something like that. And this is basically what you're trying to do whenever you're investing while you're paying off debts. You're basically trying to make this quadrant, your performance in this region, outperform your performance in that region. And so what that means is that when you eventually add up the two, if you're doing it decently, you will equate to 0. So there, that point plus that point balances up to 0. That point plus that point balances up to 0. That's if you're doing it okay. If you're doing it really, really well, what actually happens is this. So scratch this curve. You're going to give it even better curve. So now your new curve becomes something like this. So that point no longer adds with that point adds with that point. And so what it does is it shifts that basis higher. You're actually increasing your average. So when you look in the grand scheme of things, not just focusing on your investments, not just focusing on debt, but looking at everything in total, you're increasing your average by having your investments outperform your debts. But that can go the opposite way as well. So let's say your investments aren't doing as well, or your debts are doing even worse than your investments are. What you're doing is this. So that curve is much steeper, negative wise. So what that means is, for that same case there, when you plot it and match it with the debt relative to the time, you can see that you're there. So that average that used to be up there, it's now shifted down here. So you're not even meeting the 0 point. You're not even meeting the balance point. Your investments aren't being as effective as they should be just because you're so much in debt. And this is why I always say, before you start realizing how much you're going to invest, how much, whether you can invest or it's better to pay off your debt, you need to really understand how much in debt you are, because this then dictates how much you need to perform in terms of your investments to match it. If it is a realistic number, then go for it. If it's something not realistic, it might actually be best off paying off your debts first. And this comes with your personal judgment. I can't tell you the right or wrong answer. I've just given you guys the tools in this video to understand how to make the most intelligent answer. And so, the way you do this, the way you get your investments to outperform your debts, is by doing these two things. You have to do them both, or aim to do them at least. You want to keep your debts as low as possible. Focus on getting them in that region. And the way that you do that is by keeping the interest rates low. So low interest rates. So low interest. And you also do that by keeping the time frame low as well. So a low payback time. Cool. And on the flip side, the way you get your investments to make you more money is by doing the same thing but in the opposite direction. So you want to focus on this region by making sure that your investments make you high interest, so high return, and for the longest time possible. So long payback time. Doing these two things, well, these things and these things at the same time will enhance your financial situation further. And that's all she wrote, guys. So I hope that explains it clearly, how you should be able to determine the difference between paying off your debts or whether it's actually better to invest your money. Ultimately, your debts dictate everything in order for you to start to see some profits. I hope you guys liked this video and the way I broke it down. Gosh, if you did, make sure to smash that like button, share this video and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe because there's more content like this coming. I've done a reading list of stock market investment books in the short description box below, so make sure to check that out. It's your favorite YouTuber, guys, Dami Solari. I talk about stock market investments, I talk about property investments, financial management too, giving you that consistent content, you know? But before you guys can go about doing your business for the rest of the day, make sure you guys like, subscribe and share. What? DS Learning Finance. Whoa! Bye, guys.
Whoa.